Good morning and welcome to the November 7th morning session of the Johnston County Board of Commissioners. I'll now call the meeting to order and welcome those here today. We have almost a full room here, and I also want to welcome those who are watching on YouTube. I hope you enjoy or maybe appreciate the fact that these meetings are now live streamed on YouTube, so welcome. And as is customary, we will open with a prayer by our Vice Chairman Patrick Harris, followed by the pledge led by American Legion Post 71 of Clayton. So if you would, please rise.
Let us pray together. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you humbly today in prayer. Father, we thank you for this wonderful opportunity that you have placed before us. Lord, we thank you that we woke up in the greatest nation in the world. Father, we thank you for each day, for each ray of sunshine. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here today to conduct business for this wonderful county that we call home. Father, we ask that you protect our servicemen and women, our first responders, our law enforcement officers. Put your hedge of protection around them, Father, and protect their families, Lord, as they serve each one of us. Lord, we ask that you be with us in this meeting and give us courage and strength and wisdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
We just want to remind everyone that there's no comma. You're with one nation under God. Stand by. Present arms. Pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Howard there.
Thank you.
Thank the vets for their service on purpose this month.
Yeah. If you could, everybody take their seat. First item up is Robert Boyette with the Veterans Services Office and a proclamation for Veterans Day 2022. Mr. Boyette, if you have some words, and I think Commissioner Godwin will read the proclamation for us.
It's hard to follow that from Sergeant Major Durham, but I'll try.
He takes charge then. Yeah.
He's got it.
If you'd like, Colonel Boyette, I'll read this proclamation and then you can say a few words. Whereas for decades America has paused on the 11th of November, the anniversary of the armistice that concluded World War I, to remember and to honor our veterans of military service in proud and grateful recognition of the hardships and sacrifices by the millions of men and women who have defended our land in war and in peace. And whereas the freedoms we enjoy have been purchased and maintained at a high price, as Americans have been willing throughout our history to fight and die to preserve their individual rights as guaranteed in the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And whereas Americans owe a great debt to all those who have served in defense of this nation throughout the generations for their sacrifices often resulting in permanent injury or death, which have preserved our unique form of government dedicated to human rights and respect for the individual and preserved our freedoms and promise of liberty as an example for oppressed persons of the world. And whereas in honor of these dedicated men and women, we pledge our continued defense of our nation so that their sacrifice will stand before the entire world as a tribute to the spirit and determination of a people dedicated to the principle of freedom and democracy. Now, therefore, the Johnston County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim November 11th, 2022 as Veterans Day in Johnston County and urge our citizens to commend its observance. Proclaim this 7th day of November 2022. Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt this resolution.
I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Proclamation is approved. Mr. Boyd, you have any comments?
Thank each and every one of you for the proclamation for Veterans Day, as well as the proclamation for Operation Greenlight. It's going very well throughout the county. We're still encouraging businesses and residents to turn on a green light, and we're seeing a lot more of that each and every day. So I appreciate the board for also adopting that proclamation. This week obviously is a busy week for veterans and a good time to get out and recognize and share a few moments with each veteran throughout the county. I just want to take a moment and kind of let everyone know what was going on throughout the county for Veterans Day. This past Saturday, the town of Benson had an event, parade, and ceremony, and a luncheon for veterans in Benson. This afternoon, the town of Clayton is having a Veterans Day event, and they're also incorporating Operation Greenlight, which they have been doing for the past couple of weeks. They've given out over 90 green lights to throughout the community for free. Also, this coming Friday, the town of Orchard Lodge will have a Veterans Day event at 11 a.m. Town of Smithfield will have a Veterans Day event at 5:30 this Friday afternoon. And Triple S High School will hold its event that they have done annually for the past 16 years at Triple S High School indoors finally. Since we've had COVID, we haven't been able to do that for the last 2 or 3 years. So they're going to do that back indoors this Friday at 11 a.m. and encourage all the residents of Johnston County to come out and support a veteran if they can attend any one or maybe all of these events this coming Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
All right, next item on the agenda is approval of this meeting's agenda. I hear a motion to approve or any changes to the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Next up, we have the consent agenda items. We have, let me see here, 5 for this meeting. We have a bulk wastewater agreement with the town of 4 Oaks, and thanks to the staff and the folks at 4 Oaks for working hard on that. Town of Benson has an appointment to their Board of Adjustment. We have appointments to the O'Neill's Firefighters Relief Fund Board. And then we have 2 budget revisions, one for the library and one for the Sheriff's Department. And then we also have the tax releases and refunds for September 15th through October 15th. Any adjustments or anything need to be removed from the consent agenda? Or is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the consent agenda as stated.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Try to skip anything. Next up, we have public comments, and it looks like we have some audience members here today who wish to come to speak to us. Just a reminder that this is for items that are not already on the agenda. You will be given 3 minutes to speak, and we just ask that you maintain proper decorum and make your comments in a civil manner. And being that there's 1 day left for Election Day, that there'll be no campaigning from the podium. And if you would come forward and state your name and your town or township that you're from. No need to say your specific address, but if you would come forward. And so if there's anyone here to speak, please come forward now.
How are you today?
Good. Well, thank you for being courteous and waiting to see if there was anybody else. We're doing good.
Nice to see you all. Good morning, County Commissioners, and to the people of Johnston County. My name is Christine Livingston, and I live in the McGee's area. Well, here it is, Monday, the day before Election Day. Over the last 2 years, I feel like this county has been on the show Punked, and we are still waiting to see who jumps out. It takes a sacrifice to run for office. I never cared about the comings and goings of this county because I didn't think it affected me. That all changed in 2018, learning how the planning board operates and then moving down the line or up the line. I'm not sure anymore which way we are going as a county because I cannot keep up. I do thank you all for what you are doing, even if I do not agree with you. I do thank anyone who puts forth the effort to run for a political seat in this county, no matter what side of the fence they are on. We all have our own beliefs, and many will push voting their party line. As a registered unaffiliated, because of past experiences with a certain party, I will vote for who I feel is best for this county. For those that do not win and hold the seat, they are up for public scrutiny, even if they are brand new to the seat. You come in, you have to learn the ropes and then figure out how we got to where we are as a county You can't fix them in one term, and it has been broken for many, many years. A lesson I have learned in speaking with several elected officials. However, we do need term limits. We as citizens can come in and speak in public comments in a short time limit with no response. Then many of us take to social media to let our concerns be heard. We all know I'm one of those people. That is because from the lowest seat to the highest seat, rarely do you get to have that bridge of communication. The people are very, very mad in this county. The people have frankly had enough. Then remarks are made by some elected officials that say, instead of running your mouth on social media, step up and run. Well, that's very hard to do when you're among over the 50,000 citizens of this county that are registered unaffiliated. Because I can't say anything else that I have on here, I would like to thank you, Mr. Braswell, for your statement that you put out yesterday. I appreciate that, and I just want everyone to know that. So thank you all very much. Appreciate you, and may the best person win.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Madam Clerk, any emails? No emails? All right, we'll move on. Next up, we have an easement request by the NCDOT, and we have Denise Amato back with us. Good morning, Ms. Amato.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to come here again. As you know, we need to replace the bridge on 210 over Middle Creek. And last time I was here, it was questioned as to why we are doing the off-site detour as opposed to an on-site detour. I went back to my engineers and got some answers for you. The off-site detour that is planned is 10.3 miles going all the way around. This is the same detour that was previously used for 2 other bridge replacements on the same road, NC 210. They did look at doing an on-site as opposed to doing an off-site. They sent out letters to all adjoining property owners. They got no negative responses back. They have been in contact with all the EMS. They've been in contact with the fire departments. They've been in contact with the school boards and for the busing. Everybody is fine with it. It adds 14 minutes to the emergency response, but they are fine with that as long as they know exactly when our construction will begin and when it will end. We expect the construction to take 8 months. As far as the cost goes, which was probably the highest reason for choosing the off-site, it costs approximately $100,000 a month in construction. In doing an off-site, that comes down to 8 months, comes down to a cost for the Department of Transportation and your constituents, me, taxpayers, all of us, down to $800,000, as opposed to the fact that doing an on-site with building the new bridge and then destroying the old bridge, rebuilding the old bridge, takes between 14 and 15 months. So we're looking at 1.4 million or 1.5 million as opposed to the 800,000. There was also an environmental problem in there. Because of your pump station and your force main, we cannot build a temporary bridge on site using your property, so it would have to go across the street, which would be a major environmental impact to all of the trees that are over there, that are being set to be forested. That's about all I have from the engineers. Are there any additional questions?
I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Okay.
You know, I don't understand what you said about, I'm not an engineer. Luckily, we have some engineers on here. But I can't believe that the citizens in that area have no problem with that. I mean, I just don't understand that. But I don't think we have a choice, you know. I just feel sorry for those folks, and that's a high commuted highway to have to make that far. And I just, I don't understand.
I have one question, Ms. Amato. You said 2 other bridges had been built with similar detours. Do you know when that was? How long ago that was?
I do not.
I believe Commissioner is the first one here off 210 as you go by before you get to the offset. with 1010, okay?
That's right.
That's, I think that's it. I may be wrong, Commissioner, but.
I know what you're talking about.
It's a sad day when the trees get more consideration than the citizens.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just see it as when you poll the landowners that have this affecting directly, you're not taking into consideration that we have offices, and the federal government has offices there in the Ag Center, and those people it's well used during the day, and all those people are going to be affected. I'm sure you didn't get any comments back from them.
Not that I am aware.
Right, so, I mean, I'm
I
not
under-
surprised when I don't know that we've got an alternative. But I really believe that the fact that we're not considering some type of temporary structure or temporary bypass at the site to accommodate the people that pay their taxes and pay for those roads is certainly disturbing.
Well, it would seem to me, having driven that road just yesterday, that it's going to have to be widened at some point in the future. And I just wonder, why couldn't this be a step towards
Yeah.
that effort? So
They're
it's
gonna
not a
have to.
temporary, but a new bridge towards that eventuality.
I'll be honest with you, that one of the reasons I was running behind this morning is because there was just a power line down, and I got stuck on 210 trying to get down, and it was backed up from Black Creek to Four Oaks, just in that small area for a power line. So, although I don't think we have a great option, it is concerning, like you said, for the citizens that have to drive it every day. And we had people maneuvering us through it. Imagine, it just being cut off.
Imagine a farmer trying to harvest his crop, part of his crop being on either side of the bridge. He's going to have a lot of, it's 28 miles of traveling. You can say it's 14-mile detour.
No, it's 10.
10.3, still 20,
20 miles
still
of
20.
traveling.
20
miles of
20 a
traveling.
day.
When you're having to travel with a combine, it'll make no difference at 20 or 24.
Yeah.
I understand you're just the messenger, and
Yeah,
I pick it up.
we know you're just
Shoot
doing
the
your job.
But,
We're not
you're the
picking on you.
messenger, we're the ones that are gonna be blamed for it, so,
Right.
that's just,
So I
I'll give
see
you my
the,
email, and you're welcome to send their comments over to me.
so just piggybacking on Commissioner Godwin's, I guess, taking a look at the future. I mean, I see 210 is already a major road coming into downtown Smithfield, and to see that it's only going to be put back 2 lanes, it's kind of disappointing that we haven't planned ahead, which could accommodate the dual bridge replacements. And I know, I'm just thinking of one I just saw, and it's a little bit of a relocation on it at Barber Mill, but it was a leave the old end, build the new, and switch. And I wish we consider that, because you also have our landfill, which you're talking about taking,
Right.
I don't know how many trips that is a day that we're going to be having with stuff going to the landfill that's going to have to drive that extra 20 miles, it's 10 and 10,
Yeah.
to get there and back, in addition to the school. And I imagine some of that traffic's going to wrap around and go get more traffic by the school already on the 2-lane road. I'll just say, I think it's a little short-sighted, the fact that it's going to be a 2-lane bridge is what we're putting back there. I don't know, at this point, delay, because we don't have any other environmental permitting in place, and I know that's not a 1 month or 2 month, or it's measured in probably in years to do that. So we're talking, if we change, we're talking about probably a multi-year change to do this, and as much as it pains me, it's going to pain a lot more people who are making this trip daily and have to drive, an extra 20 miles to and from. So that's my 2 cents. Again, I kind of agree that we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. We're going to get blamed regardless for it. But again, we don't have a whole lot of, I don't know that we had a whole lot of input when it
What happens
came
if we
to us.
don't approve the request, if we don't grant an easement?
So I imagine the project would get kicked down the road, and I don't know if it would get re-engineered or if it would just go back in the hopper, and we would stay with and I don't know how bad a shape the bridge is in to
That's
start
what I was
with.
fixing to say. Who knows the damage? I think a meeting with DOT would probably be in order to ask a few questions, but I don't see that bridge has got this date, that bridge is no good anymore. People are traveling today, and we're not stopping them. So, what's another year if we get another environmental study? I know that this is inconveniencing us. vast number of people.
And Chairman, since we're in the process of, submitting our request with the traffic improvement plans, I agree, like, this is a perfect opportunity to not kick that can down the road that we're going to have to revisit again in 5 years when we know it needs to be widened. Can we not elevate this on our request with DOT that we're working through right now?
I don't see why we couldn't, so I would say, Ms. Amato, if we could have a meeting, this board, some members of this board with the design staff and planning staff, so that we can take a look at before we take 8 months and build a bridge that's going to be too small pretty soon.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, I would recommend, if we want to go that way, we're in a district. We have a representative from our district who represents us. I think the best step would be to have a meeting, I think that maybe Leo, and to sit down and talk to him, because he represents us, and he's the voice that if we want something, that should be advocating for it.
I'm fine with that. And I know I was trying to think, he is actually the at-large representative, and is it Simmons, was it Mr. Simmons we met at the Ranch Road opening? The actual Division 4?
It's Mr. Mitchell.
Mitchell, thank
from
you, thank
Rocky
you.
Mountain.
Yeah, so I would say so both of those would probably be good to see if we can pull together a meeting. And if it has to be one, Mr. Daughtry is obviously the closest to us, but if we could set that up, and I don't know if Ms. Mata, if you do that, Rick, if that's something, reach out and figure out how to do that.
Maybe involve Sam Lawhorn.
Yes.
Just as a comment, you said that you came down 210, Ms. Stevens, you came down 210 from Four Oaks this morning?
Well, I was coming from Benson, so I go 210, like elevation of 210, and it was just a power line down. But it was pretty backed up this morning just from them working on a power line, so it's down to 1 lane.
Let me ask you something. Do you know the timetable on the beginning of this project? Do you have any idea?
It is supposed to be let to contract in April, which means that work would begin approximately 6 weeks after that.
April of
23.
This year.
Okay.
Okay. I will take all the concerns back. I will get with Mr. Hester on who to put in contact for a meeting of the minds. How's that?
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you all.
Thank
I
you for being the
appreciate your time
messenger.
this morning.
Thank you. Yes. You're a good messenger. You show
Yes.
up.
All right, next item on the agenda, Daniel Clifton from our Buildings and Ground has a request for additional skilled trade position.
Good morning.
Mr. Clifton, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. I come before you today to request an additional position to our current staff level of 11 in our maintenance division. With the addition of the new detention center and the public safety center, we're going to be increasing our square footage by approximately 27%. Industry standards show that you try to keep around 50,000 square feet per employee, whereas now we're at 63,000. With the additional employee, that will bring us down to 58. And, that'll help us facilitate the opening of the new detention center as well as the new public safety center, as well as the other buildings and so forth that we maintain. Which just for your information, right now, we're at 75 acres roughly every 2 weeks, and basically 730,000 square feet with the addition of the public safety center.
Are there any special qualifications for the working out at the detention center?
We're going to use in-house staff that we have utilized with the jail currently. They're being trained on the new technology and so forth.
I get you.
But at this point, no.
Okay.
We're not doing any specialty training or anything. We're going, in the future, I see that we'll have to actually assign people per building, whereas now we're just dispatched by specialties.
Is that, did you budget for that in the last budget?
I did budget for a housekeeping position, but I did not. And the reason being, I wanted to assess the staff and assess what we were going to need. And I didn't want to go, put it in the budget and come up and not need it. So now that we've got into the detention centers pretty well finalized and we've seen what we've got, I'm going to need an additional personnel for that. We may need some additional, once we get into them and assess what we're going to need as far as specialties, then maybe next year's budget. But I just don't want to put on staff that I don't absolutely have to have.
Mr. Chairman. And I first want to say thank you for the great job that you and your staff do. You really do an extraordinary job in maintaining the county facilities, and they always look fantastic.
Yeah, they make us look good.
And they do a great job. And so, Mr. Chairman, with that, I would make a motion that we approve Mr. Clifton's request for an additional skilled trades position to add his staff.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I say that knowing I have a question. I just want to make sure that we have 750,000 square feet
Yes, sir.
and 10 employees.
We have 11, and this would make 12.
So this
In
would
the
make
maintenance division, yes, sir.
Okay, so I just want to,
And out of that, 2 of them are grounds,
so this would give us 10
10 actual
that's
maintenance.
doing the 750,000. So
Yes, sir.
that still leaves us at 75,000 square
We're
feet
we're overachievers.
per employee. Yeah. So I'm just, if the industry standard is 50,
Yes, sir.
it seems like we're
We're conservative.
Band-aiding something, or
We're not
you tell us
Band-Aiding.
it's gonna,
We're not, I don't feel like that we're Band-Aiding. If anything comes up, we handle it. We have very little backlog, but we do produce a lot.
okay. I say Band-Aid's probably a poor choice of words, but I just want to make sure we're not, our staff isn't burning the candle at both ends, trying to
No, sir.
make sure that it all gets taken.
We are this week because we're delivering election equipment, but
Okay. Well, I guess that was my main concern is I don't want to, burn our employees out. And when they're consistently doing 50% more than the industry standard says that
Yeah.
most people do. I guess that's the quality of employees. I'll chalk it up to the
yeah, I
employees.
tend to, industry standards, there's an average, is the way I look at it.
It could
So-
depend on what kind of square footage you got.
Yeah.
Yeah, all buildings are totally different.
I just wanted to make sure
Yes, sir.
that was, okay. So
I
we
would
have,
I would
any other
anticipate
discussion?
you're going to relook at this at budget time for.
Yes, sir. That'll give
possibility of
me,
additional-
if, say, once you get into the new detention, we get it operational, then we'll also be in the public safety center. It would be operational or
Yes.
very close to it. Then I'll assess, for instance, just the detention center, as far as air filters on that building alone, is 680 air filters in that one building.
Wow.
And we change those every quarter.
It's a lot.
Yes, sir.
You do to just emphasize what Vice Chairman Harris had to say. You do a good job, but I asked you the question, in fact, to say if you're coming to the well, come to the well. Don't cut back to the well,
Yes, sir.
later this year. So if you need it, now is the time.
I would rather ask for it, and if I do need it, assess, and then if I need it, I'll come back during the budget year.
Thank you,
of
sir.
July.
You did a much better and concise job of saying what I said. Thank you.
Oh, well, I know you in shock over the weekend. So
Yeah, that's
why-
true. That's true.
That's why I did it.
I don't know what you're talking about. If it involved,
I'm sure
if
you
it involved Clemson football, I would erase that. So.
Those air filter channels big enough for a man to crawl through.
Yes, sir.
This is at the jail.
Yeah, that's right.
You want to try it out?
All right, no. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have 3 items that Kim Rainier, I want to make sure I get that, Rainier? Rainier. I'm going to make sure I try to get that right. Here from Public Utilities is going to address for us. First up is the 210 wastewater treatment facility expansion.
So good morning. Thank you for having us.
Good morning.
Like Commissioner Lauder said, we have 3 projects we'd like to advance with your permission this morning. The first one being the 210 wastewater treatment facilities expansion from 4 to 8 MGD. This is to set up the capital project budget to start the design of a future expansion of that facility to keep up with the growth in the county. So based on demand projections and in accordance with our capital improvement plan, the county will continue to need additional near-term wastewater treatment capacity. Therefore, the staff recommends proceeding with the design of the first expansion of the 210 wastewater treatment facility from 4 million gallons a day to 8 million gallons a day. Staff completed a request for qualifications process and negotiated with a consultant for the project design. The scope includes all project coordination meetings, complete project design, subconsultants, permitting, and bidding and award services. The proposed budget is $2,003,000. Staff recommends that we take this from our wastewater fund balance, Fund 68, and we recommend approval of the proposed capital project budget and adoption of the associated capital project budget ordinance. Do you all have any questions about the project?
Any questions?
I do, Mr. Chairman. I think, didn't we deal with this idea sometime back when it was the request for qualifications? Is that what we dealt with? Maybe I'm just out of touch, but is there anything unique about this wastewater treatment facility? I guess what I'm getting at is, why does it take $2 million of design fees? I know it's driven by regulations and the engineering of it, but it's not the first time it's ever been done. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's greatly reduced from the first phase of the project because they planned out for the 24 million gallons in it. And some pieces do not need to be expanded after the first phase to get to 8 million gallons a day. So it's actually a lower number, much lower than the first phase. But there is a lot involved, from making sure the project meets all the environmental and regulatory permitting requirements. There'll be some pre-approved equipment packages that they'll have to go out and bid in advance. There'll be sub-consultants they have to manage to get geotechnical investigations done.
Just a lot of work.
There's a lot of meetings.
Okay.
There's a lot. They meet with our staff. They make sure we get what we're expecting. And we bring in the people who are going to be actually operating the plant, and we make sure their input is considered. There's a lot that goes into this. It's a complicated process. In this region, we have some of the most complicated wastewater treatment in the nation because we work so hard to get the nitrogen and phosphorus out. So it takes that extra level of detail.
Yeah, I would concur with that, just a level of, on the technical side of the treatment process. And then you have, I would say, the mechanical side of putting things in place and make sure it fits where it's supposed to go. And then the regulatory side, as you said, to handle the nitrogen. So it is a complicated process and I guess each one is a little bit different, as you mentioned, and you throw in the nitrogen and the Neuse River issues we have to deal with. It makes it a very complicated and thus expensive process. So.
My question's been satisfied.
Okay.
Kim, the plant is currently under construction. Are there modifications or preparations made to accommodate this next expansion so we don't have to go back and actually cut into structures and beef up walls and all that stuff?
Absolutely. This first phase was built to be expanded into a 24 MGD facility. We didn't build everything out to 24 MGD, but we did build some key infrastructure all the way out to an 8 to 12 MGD capacity, depending on how key it was for future expansions. That's why the first phase is so expensive, and this one will be much more economical per million gallons of treatment. So this should be a pretty, I'm going to just knock on wood, easy lift to get from 4 to 8 compared to the first. Plan 4, it's accommodated in many of the pieces that are already being constructed.
The final goal is 24 million gallons per day.
At this facility.
The
yeah.
project we just awarded the other day, the 24-inch force main that brings it from the old plant, from the new plant to the old plant, that is capable of taking the 24 million gallons a day.
No. So because and that project's on the agenda today, the effluent force main, we have some requirements when you work with a pressure main to keep it moving at a velocity.
Sky velocity.
Yeah, this is an effluent line, so it shouldn't need quite that, but if it gets too large, you end up with a gravity situation and air in the line and things like that. So we're building this out. It'll accommodate this 8 MGD, but there'll have to be a second line in the future.
Do you anticipate the plant being run as one large plant or in trains? Will you 8 million gallon trains, 10 million?
So yeah, each so we'll have they're in trains. There's not every piece is in trains, but the main 5-stage Barton flow unit is a train. That we'll add one, and we'll add them in pieces to get up into 4 MGD chunks.
I think, based on the information I've seen, I think this is a good price.
Is that a motion, sir?
I make a motion, we approve the capital project expansion here to cover this cost. And to take it from the funds that she mentioned here.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion other than me? So what would be with this design? When is the design process, or when will we go to construction? Let me just skip to there.
Well, if the needs and the economy keep trucking the way it is, we would be hoping to bid this award in the beginning of, bid and award this project in the beginning of 2024. So the other contractors will most likely still be on site and could roll this straight in if need be. They would, we would be continuously under construction.
And would this get us, are we were permitted for 13 and a half or 11 and a half? I get.
We currently have an NPDES permit up to 13 and a half, but 11.5 is currently written in. We would need additional nitrogen credit to go to the full 13 and a half, which we are already under contract to get. It just comes on over time. Okay. So we'll be able to get that additional 2 million gallons written into the existing permit fairly simply as soon as that is rolled into the process.
So would this get us to 8, and we still have another 5.5?
So
we could build another 4 million gallon a day and still be under that permit?
We have 2 facilities. So there's the Central Johnston County facility. It will, when this facility comes online, 4 MGD will be treated here, and then 7.5 will be treated at the Central Johnston County facility. That facility is rated for 9.5. So the temporary, when we get the permit to 13.5, we can re-rate that plant to 9.5 and treat 13.5 million gallons a day. When we go to this 8 million gallons a day at the 210 wastewater facility, we'll have 8 at each facility, and we'll be able to treat 16 million gallons a day if we are able to get the permitting done in time, which is underway. We are working on our NPDES permitting. You guys have approved that contract already for the consulting services to keep that rolling.
So again, refresh my memory, is the plan not to take the old one offline?
It is in
Okay.
phases. So this additional, re-rating it to 9.5 would be only a temporary measure and only if needed based on the growth curve that's going on in the county right now. Otherwise, it would stay at 7.5, and we would try and get to an even number soon when we go to this next permit and do 8 at each. And so then over time, when this one goes to 12, that one will go down to 6, and we'll slowly transfer it over because some of the portions of that plant were built in the 60s and will need to be decommissioned or totally rehabbed if we were to keep the capacity there. But we've set on a course to decommission that facility because it is in the floodway and the floodplain of the Neuse River and has flooded in the past.
We are still treating roughly 6.7 million gallons a day.
That's
Okay.
what we currently treat there.
That's what our current flow is at the
Yeah.
plant. All right.
It's down a little this year. It's been a drier year. Knock on wood again.
All right.
Can I piggyback on your question?
Sure.
Okay, construction in 2024.
Start.
Okay, completion,
Probably you're looking at a 2 to 2.5 year project time frame.
26.
End of 26 probably. Yeah.
Are we still on track to have the new plant online in 2024?
Yes, we got, at the last progress meeting, there were no time extensions to the contract yet. With 2 years to go, we have, I can't guarantee anything in this current environment in particular, but as of right now, we are on track to have project completed in mid-24. But I haven't worked on a recent project that's come in ahead of schedule. It's been a very challenging environment.
Supply issues.
All right, so any other discussion, since open that can of worms? If not, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is the Timothy G. Broom Water Treatment Plant Design, going from 14 to 18 million gallons per day expansion.
Oh, yeah. On June 20th, 2022, the Board of Commissioners authorized the design-build project delivery method for this proposed expansion of the Timothy G. Broom Water Treatment Plant from 14 to 18 million gallons a day. The county staff, we've worked with project consultant HDR Engineering and legal consultants to complete the request for proposals and interview process. We've selected TA Loving Company as the design builder for the project. That team includes Hazen and Sawyer and McKim and Creed for the design services portion. We've been negotiating with them. We negotiated a proposed Phase 1 project improvement agreement. The scope of services for Phase 1 are on a lump sum basis to include Phase 1A, the overall project scoping, design, workshop development, and initial opinion of cost, design services through 30% with a cost opinion update. And that phase will cost us $4,714,417.49. In that, we also have negotiated but not authorized the Phase 1B yet. That is to take the design to 100% with the preparation and delivery of the guaranteed maximum price and a schedule for Phase 2. That's because of the timing on this project. We have a very tight schedule, and if we halt design while we're negotiating the guaranteed maximum price for the construction, we're going to lose a couple months in there, and we want an option to move forward with that and have that pre-negotiated. So the funding for this is for Phase 1, the county will consider that after the completion of Phase 1, the county will consider the guaranteed maximum price, the work breakdown, structure, scope, and schedule, performance guarantees, and any changes to the design build team members in preparing up and finalizing a Phase 2 contract that would take us into more of the construction phase. In order to proceed with Phase 1, staff recommends the following revised capital project budget, and it's listed there. We have an existing budget that just considered our consulting agreement, and this would take us into the design build agreement. So do you need me to read out that budget, or?
I think we have it, it's on the screen,
great.
so we'll spare you having to read that to us.
Because this project's for growth, we propose to take it from our SDF reserve fee, a fund in the water fund. So we recommend allocating those funds through the capital project ordinance. So staff recommends the board's approval to proceed with the Phase 1 contract, approval of the proposed revised capital project budget, and approval of the capital project ordinance.
All right, any questions?
Kim, the clarifier, the declared gesture that we, what a claricone that we had approved earlier. What capacity will that bring the plant to? Will we have to purchase another claricone later on?
So, yeah, the claricones are sort of like the trains in the wastewater plant. You just plug an extra one in as you expand capacity. So as part of our last expansion, we had put one extra pad in and a claricone. It's not piped up, but we'll need two for this project. So we can realize some cost savings if we procure that on our own, and that's what you approved, that we could sole source and procure that on our own and just incorporate their planning for it and piping up to it.
Right.
So we will be adding an additional Claricone.
The one that we add now will take care of this 18 million gallons.
We have one that'll get us part of the way there, and we need a second one,
Okay.
a second additional one.
All right.
So I'll ask the scheduling question again. So to get through to the 30% design, is estimated to be how long?
January, early February.
Okay. And then there's not an intermediate level, it just goes, the 100% is the next delivery, or is there going to be 60 or 75% in there?
We will get updated 60% options as well, and then at 90, we should be already well into the project. But there might be 2 GMPs, there might be an early electrical package. We're seeing significant delays in procuring electrical equipment right now, and we don't want that, have a whole new expansion plan and no way to power it. So we are working with this group to put together an early electrical package, because this project includes an entirely new electrical service for the water treatment plant.
Is this a joint venture or 2 separate contracts between McKim and Creed and Hayes and Sawyer?
So when we enter a design-build contract, there's it'll either be the engineer is the lead or the contractor's the lead. In this case, the contractor's the lead, and that's TA Loving. And all the other contracts are through the team. So like, we are not directly contracting with Hazen or McKim and Creed. They're part of that team.
Design build.
The design-build team.
The site work, is there any major site work to be done with this project?
There'll be a decent amount. We're going to have a new clear well. So it's a big ground storage tank. There will be, the site work for a new filter facility, because we're going to have to add a filter, a 6 MGD filter, and there'll be site work for the Claricone.
Okay.
And that's something that they might very well get started on early as well.
So again, the overall, when we finish phase 1, is how far away?
End of January, beginning of February.
That's the completion of the 100%?
No. That's like our 30%.
Okay, 30%, so the 100% is right now,
To complete the whole project?
Yeah.
It is 385 days, so it'll take a while. But we're hoping to have it in place before the peak in '24.
okay.
Our peak.
Or
date.
the Claricone that we approved the order for earlier, is it on schedule?
We need to wait until we have a solid site plan before we can order it, because the height of the Claricone matters a lot.
So it's not been fabricated yet?
No.
All right.
No.
All right, any other questions? If not, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
sir.
it seems like the DOT's STIP funding formula now includes one of the grading items is congestion. In other words, they don't address the problem until it is a problem. And I see where the staff is trying to keep us ahead of that curve, so I move we approve the request.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, and the final item for you, effluent force main at the 210 wastewater treatment facility, proposed construction contract and budget revision. So, one more time.
No worries. The county received bids on October 26, 2022 for the construction of the effluent force main associated with the 210 wastewater treatment facility. The proposed project is included in the county's previously approved water and sewer capital improvements plan and required for the additional wastewater treatment capacity within the county system. The county received 3 bids. They are listed there. Sanford Contractors of Sanford, North Carolina submitted the lowest responsive base bid in the amount of $17,271,430. Sanford Contractors is properly licensed and experienced in the type of construction involved and appears to have the financial, labor, and equipment resources required to complete the construction within the stipulated contract time. Below is the previously approved project budget and the proposed project budget. To accommodate this project, it's significant. And funding for it is a combination of appropriation from Fund 68, our sewer fund, a clean water revolving loan, which is a 20-year loan at 1.1% interest, some of the county's ARPA funding, and some wastewater SDF reserve funds. We applied for additional funding this fall through the SRF and NCDWI programs, whichever fund, they administer a lot of different funding programs, so if any of those were to come through, we would revise this budget, but for now, this covers it all. Staff recommends the award of the effluent force main for the 210 wastewater treatment facility project to Sanford Contractors in the amount of $17,271,430. Approval of the revised project budget, the amended capital project ordinance, and the adoption of the award resolution contingent upon funding agency approval.
All right, any questions?
Kim, on the route for this force main, do we have sufficient easements, right-of-ways to put a parallel so we can double barrel this line?
So the next, you're talking about in the future, when we need to build the second line, we will have to acquire some additional easement. Just depending on if we decide to keep it as 2 force mains or 1 long gravity line.
So you're thinking about a gravity?
It's physically possible, ridiculously expensive right now,
Yeah,
but
some deep cuts.
there's some deep cuts. But those are on the table. They're part of the options that are in the future planning documents. Like I said, that would be a couple expansions from now.
Any other questions or comments?
I know we've had discussions about where we're going to leave this other old waste water treatment facility, open or closed.
So in the future, it will become sort of like Selma's facility. It was a former wastewater treatment facility, and it'll become an equalization and pumping facility that mostly serves the town of Smithfield and maybe some Four Oaks flow. So flow would get there, and if there was a big arrangement, we could store it for a while and pump it to the new facility in the future. But it would be a much less precarious situation in case of flooding. Right now, even when it's not, the water level's not high enough to overtop the dike, we can't physically access the plant when it floods out there. The roadway to it floods, and we have to evacuate our staff. So when it's just a pumping facility, you can run it on remote and manual, and it's a much safer operation.
Yeah, that was the main reason that we were building a new wastewater treatment, because of concern for flooding.
Yes, for flooding, and also the current facility is within a dike, and it was never planned to be a 24 MGD facility. It wouldn't fit in there long term. We could fit one more expansion in there when we were doing our planning back then, before Hurricane Matthew came and it flooded, but then we were going to have to find a new site no matter what, because there's just not suitable land there to expand that dike, and environmentally it's just not the best option.
So what you're telling me is that even by leaving it open, there will be no more additional capacity. Capacity is all coming from the new. Okay.
Yeah, and it'll be slowly phased out and converted into an equalization and pumping facility.
One more dumb question.
Oh, dumb
Does that add to the additional expense of treating by having the operation of two different facilities?
In some ways, yes, but these two areas were always interconnected. So when you're finished treating wastewater, you have a byproduct. That is all sent to the landfill right now, and it's treated in our biosolids facility. So these two facilities were both staffed already and both operating to treat the waste for the county. Our reclaimed water hub is at the landfill out there by the 210 facility as well. So the product from the plant in Smithfield is being pumped to that reclaimed water tank that you see when you drive into the landfill, and distributed from there. So they were already interconnected. They were already staffed by the same division, but yeah, anytime you have two facilities, it adds to your redundancy, but it adds to your cost some.
So the reason I asked the question is because is that going to be passed on to the users if we have additional costs, which are our customers?
Yeah, so the cost for new capacity, we try and pass on to new development.
I understand.
But the cost for operation is rolled into our fees. And we had put that in our rate structure before that we did for our rate study. And we're going to update that again this fall.
So,
Tony, the customer pays all of it. Developers don't pay anything.
Well, it's in their mortgage. But yeah, I get it.
thank you for opening that can of worms,
Yeah,
Commissioner Smith.
yeah, I appreciate that, you know.
I did want
Customer
to,
always pays.
yeah, I did want to clarify is all the monies, and I think my math's right, $30 million-ish we're talking about between all three of these, with the biggest being the one we're talking about now, the $17 million for the water, is either from system development fee reserves or, in this case, ARPA funding, which is intended for utilities. So it's not the taxpayers, it is fees that have already been paid in, is in reserve, and our ARPA money that we're talking about today, just to.
Already paid in.
Yes, the system development fees, yes.
Not projected system.
Already paid in. They're
Okay.
they're
Yes.
available. And the system
enough.
development fees are paid by new development coming in, whether it's passed on into mortgages and the house prices. It's not part of the rate structure.
Yes. All right, any other questions or discussion?
The late Senator Everett Dirksen said 100 million here and 100 million there. After why are you talking about real money?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to award the effluent force main for the 210 wastewater treatment facility project to Sanford Contractors in the amount of $17,271,430. Approve the revised project budget, adopt the amended capital project ordinance, and adopt the award resolution contingent upon funding agency approval.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
Ms. Rainier,
you all.
thank you for filling in, not last minute, but pretty close to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, you did a good
Thank
job.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Johnston Andrews to present on 2025 real property revaluation contract.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Every North Carolina county is required by statute to conduct a reappraisal of all real property at a minimum of once every 8 years for the purpose of ensuring equitable distribution of the tax burden among all property owners. Johnston County conducted its last countywide reappraisal in 2019, and we are scheduled to begin our next reappraisal with the effective date of January 1st, 2025. In preparation for this 2025 reappraisal, the county issued a RFQ in search of qualified companies with experience in appraisal of counties similar in size and complexity. 4 companies submitted a proposal, and an internal committee selected Pearson Appraisal Services, with whom to begin contract negotiations. Pearson Appraisal has been in the business for more than 40 years, with offices in both North Carolina and Virginia, and have conducted reappraisals for governmental entities up and down the East Coast. More specifically, they have assisted Johnston County with 3 prior countywide reappraisals, including the 2 most recent in 2011 and 2019. The negotiated price for this contract is $22.90 per parcel with an estimated 111,000 parcels. Accuracy of values and addressing property owner questions and concern are a priority for me and my office. Prior work in Johnston County has shown that Pearson's Appraisal Service also shares those same priorities. The Tax Administration Department recommends and requests that this board approve and award the 2025 revaluation contract to Pearson's Appraisal Service, Inc. Accompanying me and my team today is Fred Pearson, co-owner and manager of Pearson Appraisal Services, Inc. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
I've seen Mr. Pearson way too many times.
All right.
Yes, you have seen him several times.
And I would just say our schedule is 6 years with the next one being 4 years.
Correct. Yes, this board, the 2019 board, chose to advance the schedule so that it wasn't so long in between reappraisals. Quite frankly, 8 years is a mighty long time, especially when you're looking at an economy like we've got. So we are at a 1 6-year cycle, which will be 2025, and then unless y'all choose to change that, it will be every 4 years thereafter.
Any other questions, comments?
Comment, so even though we did, and I agree with that, moving it up
Yes,
to
sir.
4 years, does that mean because we're having it altered, and I probably can answer this question myself, but because we're moving it up, we have additional expense often, or is Mr. Pearson's expense lower because we do it every 4 years, or is the same because we have to do the same work?
Well, this contract is for the 2025 reappraisal only. Nothing past that point. And when I say nothing past that point, this contract includes all appeals all the way through, whether it's to the state level, the court, whatever. This contract addresses that, and Pearson Appraisal Service is responsible for that and assist in the county on that. Now, when it comes to the 2029, I'm sitting here having to do my math, the 2029 reappraisal, that'll be something totally different.
Okay, so
Yes,
you
that is
just
correct.
administrative costs will be more often now
Correct.
than
Correct.
This is a higher cost per parcel, Tony, than it was in the past, as expected.
Okay.
All right. And I hear a motion? Do we have one that I've slipped through that?
I'll make a motion because I won't be here when that happens, to approve and award the 2025 real property revaluation contract to Pearson's Appraisal Service, Inc.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or comments? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you, Mr.
Motion carries. Ms. Andrews, you have 2 items in a row this time, so delinquent taxes.
Thank you for taking care of that last item that is a necessary evil. I'll say
Yes.
that. So,
Let me, I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to say one thing.
yes, sir.
Just to make sure we all got it straight. What the property appraises for is only one factor in the tax rate. The appraisal just tells us what the taxes are. The millage that we put on that is where the pain is administered.
That is correct.
Well spoken.
Good for us, bad for you.
No, it's,
is-
the value is, the value, when we appraise property, which we need to do it more often to get it up to date, that doesn't raise anybody's taxes. That just tells us what the base is. The tax rate is determined when we determine the millage we're gonna put on the taxes, the base.
Understood. I understand that.
And just to give you a little clarification, you are spot on. That is correct. The only thing we are doing is determining what market value is as of January 1st of 25 of all real property in Johnston County. The problem, or maybe I shouldn't say problem, but the opportunity that is presented at that point, it becomes very fast and very furious for a few months because that will be as of January 1st of 25. And then this board, whoever is sitting on this board at that time, will be responsible for setting the tax rate in June of that year. And so during that time, there will be, even in the best of years, there will be a lot of appeals, and, we will be working feverishly to ensure that everybody's heard and that we have got those values correct so that whenever I present information to the county manager and finance director, and then they present to you, that we have solid numbers so you all can make a decision as to what the actual tax
And
rate.
you're exactly right. And there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and misrepresentation goes on by boards of commissioners at that time. Because if, if the base goes up 25%, let's say, and we don't reduce the millage 25%, that is a tax increase. And too many boards of commissioners say, well, the tax rate was 70 cents, we're going to keep the tax rate 70 cents so we don't raise anybody's taxes. That's just not, that's not honest with our taxpayer. So we're going to have to face that, or someone's going to have to face that in 25, but that's the facts of the matter.
Well, and I'll say, there's a lot of work that my staff
know
and
you work
will
hard.
be doing between now and then to ensure whatever the market looks like on January 1st of '25, that you have the numbers to be able to make the determination that's best for this county.
All right.
Thank you.
I think that still leaves us,
I'm still up.
yeah, with
Yes,
the
I am.
tax report, yeah.
Before you have the September collections report. As you can see, we are early in the fiscal year as far as collections. And as of the end of the month of September, we had collected $21.5 million. I'll be happy to take any questions this time.
Any questions, comments?
I think you're doing a great job.
I'll be glad to pass that along. Thank you.
Thank you.
100%, right?
100% what? We're working there. Yes, sir. We sure are. And if you don't believe it, if you ever decide you want to pull my collections manager to the side, she takes it very, very personally, and she is awesome. So that team does a great job.
I think you look at the rest of the state too and have that urge to beat them, right?
Oh, always.
Okay.
Always, I assure you. And it's interesting because the numbers come out, there's quite the delay in the numbers. And Dennis Woodward, who's my deputy sitting on the back row over here, he and I are always waiting for those numbers to come, and then we're always, scouring to see where we are. And if we go to a conference, my collections manager's like, well, hey, have you found out what anybody else is doing? So, oh, yes, it is. We take it very personal. So that is the goal. Yes, sir.
All right, next up on the agenda is the voting delegate for the 2022 North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Legislative Goals Conference. That is this November the 16th through the 18th. And we need to appoint a delegate and an alternate, and I have planned on attending and as chairman, I will be willing to be the delegate, and as vice chairman, Commissioner Harris has said he would be willing to be the alternate unless there's any.
You need a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I
sir.
move that we appoint the chairman and vice chairman to serve in those roles.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
We'll send you our proxy.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, we have a discussion of our draft board rules of procedure. Ms. Lester, you have some introductory comments.
Sure. I appreciate and thank you for the feedback that I've gotten with this most recent iteration that was sent out to you. I want to mention maybe a couple things that you'll see before you in this discussion draft. I tried to put notes in the comments so you could see what the statutory references were. So if you had particular questions about why things were drafted the way that they were, that you would have those references included. In talking with some of you with regards to particular items, one thing that I do want you to spend a little bit of time talking about today is the remote participation in board meetings. Remember when we adopted our remote participation policy, it was in the midst of COVID, before the legislature had clarified what those rules might be. And we erred on the side of caution with regards to our remote participation policy to make it as clear as possible and to provide as much due process as possible to folks that participated in our meetings. Our remote participation policy at the time that we adopted it allowed for remote participation during open sessions and did not allow for remote participation in quasi-judicial hearings or in closed session. And the reason for that was because quasi-judicial hearings require a vast modicum of due process, and we did not want to in any way inhibit that ability for due process. With regards to the closed sessions, the basis for that was because at the time our technology was not as it is today, and we did not have necessarily the capability to provide for that confidentiality and those sorts of things that are required for closed session. So that's why we did it that particular way. Now, the legislature, after this policy was adopted, the legislature went and clarified a few things for us and basically said that notwithstanding any other authority that you have to adopt a remote participation policy during a state of emergency, you may have remote meetings, and your remote meetings can include closed sessions and quasi-judicial matters. Now, in your remote policy, what we have said is that this applies for a member who's not physically present, but that you have to have the majority or a quorum of the board physically present to have a meeting. Now, that would not apply in a state of emergency, obviously, but what we didn't want to happen, or what the board at the time didn't want to happen, was for duly elected commissioners just to say, oh, I'm not coming tonight, so I'm just going to call in. So that was what we were trying to prohibit with that. But nonetheless, I want you to think about that, because what we have said in this rule is that no member who is not physically present for a board meeting may participate except in accordance with the remote meeting policy. And what your policy says right now is that no quasi-judicial, no closed session, that sort of thing. I think we, from a practice perspective, once the legislature changed the rule and we were under the state of emergency, then we utilized those rules. And that was accepted for in the policy as well. But nonetheless, I would like some clarity with regards to that piece of things. And once you get to that section, happy to answer any questions that you may have. Another thing that sort of came up in my discussions with some of you had to do with how the chairman and the vice chairman are appointed and those sorts of things. That's contained within Rule 9. I went back and double-checked the statute because I wanted to be sure that that what I told you was correct. And what the statute says about that, it's 153A-39. It talks about the appointment for the ensuing year, which is why we looked at those one-year selections for the term. Now, the practice of this board has been that the chairman typically goes for 2 years. You elect it year by year, but typically for 2 years, because the first year is the figuring it out, and the second year is being able to execute and implement the policy. And then there was some conversation that I had with some of you about the setting of the agenda and the time frame in which materials were due to the clerk. And the commissioner that I spoke with about this had a really good point. In the policy, we said 10 days in advance. The model rules say 2 days. And when we drafted it this way, our thought process was, well, you need your package for agenda review, you need to know what's going to be on the agenda, and all of those sorts of things. And so we require our departments to get it in early so we can then put the materials together and get you the information that you need. Well, in having conversations with one of the commissioners, it does make sense in some ways that the agenda may change. as we go through the process of agenda reviews and those sorts of things. And so that time frame is certainly something to discuss about but amongst you. And we can still, from an internal practice perspective, require that our departments get us this information in advance and all that sort of thing, so you can have complete packages for your agenda review sessions. But that was one of the comments that was mentioned to me as well. I think the rest of it is really just pattern and practice and a very specific modeling of the proposed rules from the School of Government. But with that, I'll sit down and let you talk, and if you need me, I'd be more than happy to get back up.
I was just going to say, where did you say on the number of days before the agenda, what rule, was that in the rule?
That was
It's in
rule.
I see,
B.
15,
10B is what I'm looking at, Borden. No, that's the publishing of the
I think it's 15 then.
schedule.
Is it 15?
Let me,
It is 15.
Okay, it's 10? didn't
yes,
see
it's
agendas.
15A, I'm sorry about that, where it says draft agenda.
Yeah.
The School of Government had 2, we changed that to 10. And I'm sure that as y'all discuss, the rationale for that can be explained, but certainly I will be the first to say that the agenda does sometimes change after agenda review. Now, what's published and what goes out, that's your agenda. But sometimes when we have those agenda review discussions, there are changes that are made outside of that 10 working days. So it may be that you decide that you want to change that date. And I'm certain as you have these conversations amongst yourselves that the commissioners that I have spoken with on each of these particular issues will describe their thoughts about that as well. But I just wanted to make sure that I pointed out the issues that were brought to my attention as you have gone through this process. And I really appreciate your thoughtful consideration as we have attempted to work through these rules. And I hope that once we're done, we all have a guide in which we can work from that works for everybody, the staff, the elected board, and the citizens. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, first off, I want to compliment Jennifer on what a great job she did on doing these rules, and appreciate her redlining it where we could read it, and she did a great job on that. I really think the agenda is going to become more important when we have rules. And I know and these are rules for the board, not for the government. That's, Rick sets those rules. And I know there's, when we do the agenda review, sometimes there's, might need to be a change. And I would recommend that we, instead of making that 10 days, we make that 5 days.
That's what I was thinking.
So I don't have a problem with that. I do want to ask Ms. Lester, so if it's an emergency meeting, then all that goes out the window, and the agenda is going to be very specific on that. So this is just regular meetings.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I do know that when we have typically agenda review, there may be some tweak to that we need. So I think 5 days is, I would still say, like to get it in as early, if it's currently 10 days when people get it to you, that you have it. I don't want to start sliding and people miss a date, which
We can set our internal number as whatever number we want it to be, and we will continue to have that internal number set the same way that we always have. So the agenda packages will be complete when you receive them. I think this might provide some flexibility as we go through that agenda review process. If there is a board member that needs to add something on, or if something has changed that we have, based on what we've discussed, or if there's an emergency item that pops up, which they do sometimes, that gives us some additional flexibility to get that into your packet and out to the public. But the thought is that it will still go out, the complete package would still go out as it always has. And, certainly as you call your meeting to order and you review your agendas, if you want to make changes to those, you're certainly entitled to do that. But for for openness and transparency purposes, the thought is we get the complete agendas out, but this gives us flexibility through that process where the departments turn it in to when it's reviewed internally, to when it gets to the board and those sorts of things.
Okay. So that's, takes care of Rule 15, I think. Any other comments? I think you mentioned Rule
The thing about
3 as well, remote.
the annual officers, I like that annually, just leave it like it is, because we may be in the middle of something that it really makes sense to keep the current slate in place beyond that second year. But if we do it annually, we can plot our way as we go.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend whatever the most liberal online procedure that we adopt that.
That's what I was going to say. I would think participation in all aspects, as long as it's legal for closed session as well as quasi-judicial, if we can, I would agree with that. So any issues with making remote participation, I would say open to all aspects of our meeting. And
I'm going to come up because he's working on my microphone. And I hear what you're saying, and I think that for when we're in a state of emergency under a proclamation, then that means we're wide open.
Okay.
Everything under the statute is allowed. When we are not under the state of emergency, my recommendation would be participation in closed session, participation in these other items, but that the remote people not count as your quorum, because that you need to have a quorum that is physically present.
Okay.
So that would.
That's a good idea.
Because the state of the law is uncertain, and so I don't want to fall into a pit of uncertainty when it comes to that.
I agree. But you can still vote.
Yes, sir.
Right.
For example, in September, everybody was here, but I was out of state, and I watched the meeting, but I couldn't participate in it. But with that rule change, I could have participated and discussed and that sort of thing.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think early on, in the early stages of COVID, we had one where I participated, but
Did
I
not
could not do it
participate in closed session.
Closed session.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's right. Okay. And then the only other.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to, I really think that the chairman should be elected for a 2-year term. The reason I believe that is when you're in a leadership role like that, to have certainty that you're going to be doing that for 2 years, I think allows the leader to do a better job rather than thinking I got to run every year and all that uncertainty that affects that.
I don't think I've seen a 1-year rotation, really.
No, but we've had that every year. We elect a new chairman, and I like doing that because if he's doing a good job, it's sort of automatic. And if he's not, well, then maybe we shouldn't have had a 2-year. You know what I mean?
Well, if it takes them 2 years for a learning curve, that means they probably should need to go 3, right?
We can put them in for 2 years, you know,
Well,
one at a time.
I just think that,
Well, no doubt about it. I'm saying have him sit there. I understand that it should be a 2-year commitment there.
and then I really think that's
So,
job security.
so 2 years or 1 year?
I would strongly recommend 1 year. We can always add 1 year. We can put a person in for 2 years.
Well, we got
But
to
when
vote
you
on
bind
this.
them up,
Yeah.
it ties our hands. The members have their hands
Yeah,
tied.
we're going to have a,
Vote on that.
You want to take care of that right now?
Yeah.
So do let me point out one thing. As you're thinking through that, just remember that we'll have to be cognizant of the terms of the elected officials if you're going for 2 years, because, and that's not to say if for whatever reason it's split up and there's an election and somebody doesn't run again or isn't reelected or that sort of thing, that we can't deal with that. But that's one thing that you might want to think about as you're thinking this through.
Yeah.
well, I think we can understand it if we're looking at who's qualified or wants to be chairman, then if you're going to be reelected the very next year or have it has to take into play. I think we can deal with that, but.
Well, I think that, I mean, the situation that I came on is is exactly that. We had resignation. I stepped in for the last year of that two-year term, say, and then, so I'm finishing that out this December. So then it was at a two-year appointment after that or continuing to one. So it would be a situation where I don't know if it's unique or not, but where you have somebody who's going to be a one-year term, and if it's a two-year term, technically I'd be in the middle. Somebody going to get off cycle. So
You don't have to worry about cycles if
With
you have
1
1
year.
year. It's
Yeah,
not broke, so we don't need to fix it.
yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine.
I think the
personally
chairman
fine with
probably needs to work through it 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, I
But
think
1 year at a
traditionally we've
time,
done.
It just takes care of
It's been
itself.
2 years, but it's been on an annual basis. So.
It's been sort of a given that it's 2 years, I think, is what
Yeah.
we have operated on. It's a given,
All right.
unless you really are.
But we elect them every year.
Yeah.
Every other organization and board I've served on, it's been, the leader was a one-year term, and I think that, I mean, I agree, there's, if it's not broke, don't fix it, but I like the opportunity to have the change if it's needed.
Yeah.
Do we need to take an official vote, or can I just say, hey, 1 year, raise your hand, and we'll see how that goes?
You're chairman.
I'm just gonna, I'm just thinking.
You can break it up into pieces, certainly, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, who's in favor of just being 1 year, doing it every year? So
Like we've done it.
so that's 4. All right, so it looks like it's 1 year. So we'll take care of that piece.
And you can still accomplish the same objective in leaving your chairman in for a 2-year term. You're just going to readdress it every year.
Yeah,
We could leave them in for
Nothing's
5
changed.
years, but we do it every
Yeah.
year.
yeah.
You just every year, you're going to relook at it.
In this situation, it could be possible that you'd go 2 full years plus that partial,
Right.
you know.
If you're gonna try to justify it, then, it's,
We've always
y'all
elected,
struggled with your vote, okay,
we've always had 2-year terms, but we've always elected them every year.
Yeah, I've always driven a certain car, but I might change next year.
There's somebody's picture on that wall back there was chairman for 21 years.
I don't think that's
We're
gonna happen
going to break that
anymore.
record, put.
No. So that's any other rules on there that anybody has to discuss? I did have one, and it's rather nitpicky, but in Rule 5C, which is closed session participants. So we get rather specific when we say deputy county manager / finance officer. So I would, and this would be looking down the road, is deputy / assistant county manager, which we don't have an assistant right now, but, and then comma, finance officer. So if somebody's a deputy or a finance, right now that's one person, but rather than define it, so right now it's one person, because we may have a deputy manager that's eventually not the finance officer, but separate that into deputy. I don't care if you put assistant county manager, deputy county manager, comma, finance officer, whatever, but I think that needs to be split up, what we have in there now.
Just put a comma there instead of a slash.
I think that, well, I would add assistant too, because I mean, as we go forward, I know there's other places that have deputy managers and assistant managers, so.
Well, we can still invite anybody by a majority vote of the board.
But if we develop an assistant county, I don't have to invite them every time
You don't have to come.
to come, so it's in there, and it's, like I said, it may not happen for a long time, but I know that,
You're right, it's nitpicky.
yeah. It is nitpicky, but we may have that position sometime.
Just agreeing with you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. So any objections to that change?
I don't.
You can have your comma.
Thank you. Well, actually, I wanted an assistant and a comma. Yeah, there you go. I want it all. I want it all.
Do we need to vote on
You're
that?
getting greedy now.
Yeah, that was,
I don't think you need to vote on it. I think it'd be all right.
okay, yeah, I think that's good. That was all. I mean, I didn't have a thank you for doing the red lines. I think that helped me a lot, get to understand where we were
Great job.
coming from, so appreciate the time you put into that. And so
Okay, we got that in.
so do we need to formally adopt these rules? So do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt these rules as we have modified herein.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries, so rules are adopted.
I wonder if,
I'm always nervous when he goes into the bag.
I'd like to get these rules in some type of permanent form. Would it be something like this, or would it be a notebook? I think that's a small expenditure to make sure that it's something we can keep up with. And
It'd be nice to pass out to newly elected commissioners when they go through HR.
is that a
I don't think that and putting it on
Our
online
staff's pretty
somewhere.
talented. They could put together a binder or something.
I don't like extra paper.
That
but
won't
we
be a
have it
problem at all.
online, but
We can
mine would
certainly
be-
do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, next up, we have manager reports and comments. Mr. Hester?
Good morning, everybody. We, back in the spring, you may recall 5 or 6 broadband companies came and presented to the board their applications to the state for a great grant to be decided upon by the North Carolina Broadband Office. So that process went along, and the state awarded companies to all the different counties in North Carolina. Several companies. Cloudwise was the one that was selected for Johnston County by the state. Halifax, Nash, and I believe Harnett were 3 others in our area that Cloudwise was chosen for. So, in the meantime, we have been in contact with the broadband office to find out a little bit about how this process is going to work. Our understanding is that the companies will be contracting with the state. The state's going to have guidelines and an agreement for how they're to perform and timelines and all that stuff. But I shared with the broadband folks in Raleigh that we'd like to have a conversation with Cloudwise. And it's interesting, this morning I got contacted by the CEO of Cloudwise. So what we'd like to do is staff have a conversation with Cloudwise to understand clearly what the plan is, and then in my suggestion that they come before the county commissioners as well and do a follow-up publicly about what their plans are, timelines, coverage areas, things of that nature. So I just wanted to update the board. If there's anything that you'd like for me to do further on that, please let me know, but that's kind of approach that I suggest. So just wanted to update you all on that, and I'll probably be talking to the CEO Cloudwise today or tomorrow.
You know, over the years, people talk to us about education things, and we say that's not our purview, other than the, capital funding. But this is one area that we can assist that education process by getting more citizens having availability of broadband and connectivity. So yeah, I think it'd be a good idea.
And especially because there will likely be a request for a match from the county. So that's another reason why I think that there needs to be all the due diligence. And we've talked.
There's already been the request. I mean, that was part of the.
That was understood.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
And we've talked to a couple other counties too, to do some reference checking as well. So just wanted to update you on that. We'll keep you posted on that process. And if you have any questions or suggestions, please let me know.
I do have a comment, and I'm going to have
Yes, sir.
Mr. Braswell comment on here. It is still frustrating to me, out of all the ones that were presented to us, the one that provided the least amount of impact, the lowest number of residents, was the one selected for us.
You took the words out of my mouth.
I thought that may be in there. So that is frustrating that we had no input into that decision.
I thought the same thing, but something that county manager pointed out, the reason those others fell by the wayside, I think, was because of objections. And so A was saying, we're going to cover this area, but B was saying, we've already got this part covered. We were going, when all of that came together, this might be more net coverage than all of those because of overlap. You see what I mean?
Yeah, well, it depends on, we don't know what their other programs, what they're going to do, but I just know what I saw and the number of residences that were going to be added to the list this was the lowest total. By, I think, of at least a factor of 4, maybe 5 on some of them, so.
At least based on the presentations that were made.
Right. Now, I hope they all have big plans to expand, and I hope we
I
can
think the
find out what
state
they
weeded
are.
them out, though, because of net coverage, not, they were talking gross coverage, and when they got to compare notes, some of it was already covered by another company.
Yeah. All right.
I'll keep you posted on that.
Okay, thank you. Anything?
I plan to talk to him today or tomorrow, and we'll keep you posted. The second thing was, I think at a previous meeting, the chairman may have asked about when the regional utilities study would be presented to the board that started about 9 or 10 months ago, I believe, so that'll be in December. The firm doing that was Black and Beach. J.D. Solomon was sort of running quarterback on that on behalf of the county, so that'll be in your December board meeting. And that's all I have from my end.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, towards that broadband he talked about, keep that in mind at the Legislative Goals Conference. That probably ought to be up there close at the top.
It definitely is an agenda or an item on there, so. All right, next up, we have board comments and reports, so I'll start with you, Commissioner Braswell.
I have a situation, and it's actually in Vice Chairman's district, but Cleveland is building a new fire department. I brought this up last meeting. And I think that utilities is only doing what they were directed to do by us. But this new fire station will take about the equivalent of a 4-bedroom home in sewer usage. And when I think of fire departments, these fire departments, they work, they support each other when there's a large fire. They provide services to the community that have really become essential for insurance purposes and whatever. But they're building that new station, and we have 2 force mains that run along Cornwallis Road, and I'm told they're both at maximum, but it's hard for me to conceive that we can't, another 500 gallons a day is going to put those lines at risk. And I would like to just, I don't know whether I need to make a motion or what, to get the utility department to figure out some way to make that work. Yeah, Kim's probably going to have to address that.
Those mains are challenging. Every little bit that you add to them changes the hydraulics for all the other pumps on the system. And as much as we want to be able to help the fire department, we looked at this system and it would create a problem for them and for us. We have had in situations on that very same force main where the check valve failed and we flooded a person's basement with wastewater because it's such a high pressure out there. And I hate that the due diligence didn't bring this up until after it was purchased. But like you brought up, it's the equivalent of a 4-bedroom house. It's something a septic field can take care of. If in the future the development that was planned around that area comes to be, we could take them off of that septic system and be able to put them through any new sewer in the area. But when we've evaluated these things in the past, I know you all know Tim Broom. At his private residence, he was struggling with his septic system. And he said, can I get a private pump station and pump in because of that? I ran the numbers on that force main, and you would think, 2 people living in a small home in Johnston County could get in. There wasn't a drop left. And he's like, I cannot believe that, Kim. And I said, I wish it wasn't so. I ran all the numbers. And he looked at my numbers and he said, it's just true. I can't even get one more home on this line. And that does happen. And we're trying to avoid that, creating that situation for anybody in the county. Tying into a major transmission force main, it changes the hydraulics for everybody else, but the small players always lose. They pick out a pump and the other pumps are on VFDs, they pump higher, they don't get in, their septic fail, I mean, their tank fails, they back up. So it's a challenging situation, and when they spoke with us, I just hated it because I wish we had addressed this before they picked this parcel and moved forward. But also, they do have a solid option for a septic system for that size development.
Have we gone back to the people that were tied onto that line and re-inspected the ones? There are other people tied on to that line. You said there was one failure, and that was the result of a malfunction in a check valve.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they put the wrong stuff in. The difference between a regular standard check valve and a true union check valve allows you to clean that check valve periodically, so if trash gets under the seat, that it won't bypass. And you know, the reason that I bring this up is that's a $125,000 cost for that fire station. And I know that's you know, we went into scheme of things, that may not be a lot, but you know, they're not a part of us, but we certainly fund a lot of stuff for them.
I understand, and you know, the $125,000, you know, they'd still have to pay our sewer connection fees, which there's several, you know, thousands of dollars as well, and then our wastewater fees for the use. So I don't know how that on a present worth analysis comes out.
What about the
But,
value of the land? What I mean is, they're buying the land, but they've got the land. Could
If
that be
it's
leveraged to
adjacent.
do something else? You know what I mean? It's not like they're losing 125. They're trading a cash asset for a land asset.
I brought this up too. I think it is a bit frustrating, and I know there's another line that's coming right there as well that a lot of residential homes are going to be tied to. So is it not, since they're not built yet, is it not?
So that,
can we swap some of that capacity? I mean, we know, and you know, the houses, if they're not going to be finished within 2 years, that we can use that capacity.
it's not the capacity for treatment or anything like that. The pump station will pump, and this smaller system won't be able to get in the line. Just,
Like a driveway on the interstate.
yes, it is like that. And then the more as those houses come online, it might get in now because that pump station only has to pump a few hours a day. But when it's being used all the time, when those homes come online, it won't get in, and that will back up. It's been a real issue in the county. We're fixing a lot of these, and we don't want to create a situation for a fire station that they're going to have to put a lot of money into later to fix. They'll be burning up pumps. There's hardly any pumps this size that can get into this high pressure in these situations. We have areas where they're putting well pumps in for sewers because it's the only one that can meet the head conditions, and it's a leftover problem that we're trying to address.
The pump stations, there's two of them, right? Or do both those force mains coming from the same station?
There's a lot of pump stations in the North Cleveland area there. But yeah, it's mostly coming from the Austin Pond station down that way.
Is that station controlled by SCADA?
From a float system inside the wet well.
But so we don't have any control, we can't override that with the SCADA?
Yeah, we could override that with the SCADA, and it depends where you want the wastewater to come out. Will it be at Austin Pond, or would it be at that fire department? No capacity. So, you know, the floats set it so it pumps down to as low as it can, and then as soon as it gets as high as the alarms, it'll come down. So there's like I was talking about, there is sometimes where in the beginning that pump station from the fire department might get in, but as we use that station more and more, it will be pumping almost all the time, and then other people.
So we're talking about 100% duty?
It's going to be on VFDs. It's going to be able to pump both directions. The whole Winston Point development comes through there, which is expanding extremely right now. The plan for that area was to work with a long-term development plan and have a gravity system through there to the pump station, but that did not happen. So we wish they would have come and asked us what the sewer situation was like before they made this plan. There's a lot of, puns about assumptions, but it's unfortunate. We don't like being the bearer of bad news, but it's a situation that wouldn't be good for either of us.
Anything else? All right. Mr. Godwin?
Just two things, Mr. Chairman, to remind everybody and all the citizens listening about the Veterans Day celebration, especially the one at Triple S. That's a large one, and it's an opportunity to showcase all of the junior ROTC programs in the high schools in the county. And it's really an impressive program, plus the choral groups and the band, all of those groups. And also Thursday evening here at the courthouse, I think it's at 6 o'clock, the Alzheimer's Remembrance Ceremony. Remind everybody of that. That's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
All right. No, Chairman Harris?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Commissioner Smith?
I got nothing.
So I did have just a reminder mainly for the board and maybe for those in the public is, we do our financial modeling at least once a year, but I know we have a lot of things that are on our plate right now that just a reminder that probably need to be constantly updated, considered our capital plan, the CIP that we've got for that, our board priorities that we have, and also again, the financial modeling. So as we hear other projects coming on, and I know we got some that are going to come before us in short term that are $20 million here, $5 million here, $30 million here, to make sure that we capture those, and staff is updating our models, and that's so Rick and Chad, I don't know how often we need to do that, but I think that's probably something with the ones that we are hearing about now that aren't in our financial models, that you take a look at that for us. If there's any feedback you need to give now on that, or just let us know. But if you want to add to that.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and we're in the process now. We run those scenarios quite a bit throughout the year, but obviously as things come forward, and we do some assumptions in different scenarios, but at the end of the day, it's the priorities of the commissioners. So at some point, it might be good to revisit maybe meeting individually with board members, getting some feedback, and as we run these models, we could run them, probably 20 different ways with all the different things that you all probably get, folks will present to you over time. And, there's X amount of debt capacity, and also we factor in not only with new facilities, but additional operating expense has to be factored in there as well. So, but anyway, thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Chairman. We're in the process of doing that now.
And we'll do that. I know in March, 15th and 16th, or whenever we have our board work session for planning, that we will definitely take a look at our board priorities and offer some feedback. But in between now and then, I know we have, at least I think of 2 projects coming up that we probably need to figure out how they fit in, but rather than waiting on there. So.
And Mr. McClam does a great job with that modeling and assumptions and percentage rates and interest rates and everything else. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And the final thing I did want to add is Vice Chairman Harris and myself had a chance to meet with some elected officials from the other towns in the county, and I was very pleased. There were 24 of us there. Each town was represented there, and mainly the discussion was on areas of cooperation and for each town, and not only between the town and the county, but the towns themselves. So it was a very productive meeting. Thank for the town representatives who showed up. We will have, I think, maybe some quarterly meetings on that, and we'll rotate through depending on where the meetings are in there. So we'll make sure that happens. And again, I think there was
all 11.
all 11 towns were represented. So we had at least one member. I think there was one town had one member, and most had 2, and there were some that had 3 but did not represent a quorum. None of us had a quorum present, but it was a very good discussion on real issues and real opportunities. So we look forward to continuing that dialogue with the towns and working together with them on whatever the issues are that come up.
Y'all happen to discuss regional sewer?
So we discussed a lot of things. I don't have my right laptop to pull it all up, but it was obviously sewer, water sewer. We had recreation, it was a big issue, mountain to sea trails. I was trying to think, Commissioner Harris, you remember that? Those were probably the ones I heard most consistently throughout. So transportation and how to work through that through some of our regional planning organizations and DOT. I don't think it is not any surprise to anybody still here and those watching on YouTube of the items that came up, because there weren't any surprises, but it was pretty much all 12 entities had very similar issues that we saw being important. So.
Overall, it was a very, very good and very positive meeting with a lot of good in-depth discussion about the issues and concerns that the towns face. So I think it was really well spent, time well spent.
Yeah. So that's it from me, and with that, I think we need a motion to go into a closed session.
Yeah, I move the board go into closed session for purpose of consulting with an attorney employed by the board in order to preserve the attorney-client privileges pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A3, discuss matters related to location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A4, to establish or instruct staff concerning the negotiations, the price and terms of a contract concerning the acquisition of real property pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A5.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor to go into closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will go into closed session as soon as we can get the room cleared out.